All right, let's talk about building a better mind. Today, we're putting together a toolkit for thinking more clearly, one that's going to help you slice right through all the noise and messy arguments you see every day. Let's get into it.
You know that feeling, right? That frustration. You jump online, you're hoping for just a decent, reasonable conversation, and then bam, minutes later, you're in the middle of this storm of insults and claims that just don't hold up. It feels like everybody's shouting, but nobody's actually building a solid point.
And that's really the heart of the problem. We are swimming in poorly constructed arguments. They're like these rickety old houses, ready to fall apart if you just push on them a little. But what if you had the blueprints? What if you had the inspection tools to spot every single flaw, not just in what other people are saying, but maybe even in your own thinking?
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the basic anatomy of any argument. Then, we'll get out our fault detector to learn how to spot bad logic. After that, and this is the tricky part, we're going to turn the mirror on ourselves and check our own thinking. And finally, we'll look at why thinking isn't just something you do, it's a skill you can master.
Okay, first tool out of the box, the architect's blueprint. See, before you can judge whether an argument is good or bad, you've got to understand its basic parts. How is it put together?
So, every argument starts with premises. You can just think of these as the raw building materials, the wood, the bricks, the nails. A premise is simply a statement that's offered up as a reason or a piece of evidence. So a really simple premise might be something like, all the lights in my neighbor's house are off. It's just a fact, an observation that's going to support a bigger idea. And what are we building with those materials? The conclusion. This is the main point, the whole reason the argument exists in the first place. So if our premise is, all the lights are off next door, the conclusion we're building towards is, therefore, my neighbor is probably not home. See how that works? The premise is the foundation, and the conclusion is the house you build on top of it. So for an argument to be truly solid, what we call sound, it needs to be like a well-built bridge. It absolutely has to have two things. First, you need strong materials. Your premises have to actually be true. You can't build a bridge with rotten wood, right? And second, you need a supportive structure. The logic that connects your premises to your conclusion has to be valid. If either one of those things fails, the whole argument just collapses. Now, there are basically two main types of blueprints for these arguments. On one hand, you have deductive arguments. These guys are aiming for absolute certainty. If the premises are true, the conclusion is 100% totally, completely guaranteed to be true. Think of it like a math equation. But on the other hand, you have inductive arguments, and these are all about probability. If the premises are true, the conclusion is likely to be true, but it's not a sure thing. This is more like what you see in science, where you draw likely conclusions based on evidence. Okay, let's grab our second tool now, the fault detector. This tool is all about spotting those common, sneaky flaws in an argument's construction, what logicians call informal fallacies. Now, these aren't huge structural failures that are easy to see. No, these are much more subtle. They're little errors in reasoning that often work because they play on our psychology. Our emotions, our biases, our mental shortcuts. They trick us into accepting a conclusion that hasn't really been earned. And here is a classic, a big one I guarantee you've seen online 1,000 times, the ad hominem attack. It's Latin for to the person, and that's exactly what it is. It's when someone completely ignores the actual argument and just attacks the person making it. I mean, look at this perfect example. Does this statement say anything at all about this senator's actual claims on China? Does it look at his evidence, his logic? Nope, not at all. It just tries to dismiss everything he says based on his political party. It's a total distraction, not a real argument. Let's look at another one, a really common fallacy called the false dilemma. This is a tactic that's specifically designed to back you into a corner. It works by presenting just two options, usually two extremes, as if they are the only choices in the entire universe. Wow. I mean, this is a perfect and, let's be honest, a pretty manipulative example. It creates this intense, emotional choice. But is it a real choice? Of course not. There are tons of other possibilities. You could love children and believe in charter schools, or homeschooling, or improving the current system. This argument just pretends those other options don't even exist. So we've got tools now to pick apart other people's arguments. But the most powerful tool in the entire toolkit, it's also the hardest one to learn how to use. It's time to pick up the mirror. It is so easy to see the flaws in someone else's thinking. it is way harder and way more important to find the flaws in our own. Real critical thinking starts with a little bit of humility, the self-awareness to step back and honestly examine our own reasoning. The thing is, our own minds have these built-in blind spots. We can fall in love with our own ideas. We might start cherry-picking evidence, only paying attention to the stuff that supports what we already believe. And then there's straight-up denial, where we just refuse to accept facts that make us uncomfortable or challenge our worldview, no matter how strong the evidence is. Just knowing that these mental traps exist is the first big step to thinking more clearly.
So, with our blueprints, our fault detector, and our mirror all laid out, we get to the final part of our toolkit. What does it all add up to? What does it mean to become a master builder of thought?
And really, this is the most important thing to remember. Critical thinking is not a weapon you use to win arguments or to tear other people down. It's a constructive practice. The real goal is to build something for yourself, a clearer, more accurate, and more thoughtful understanding of the world, one idea at a time. So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on, and I want you to really think about it. What is one thing you believe that you are absolutely certain of? Now, be honest with yourself. What kind of evidence? What kind of argument would it take for you to even start to question it? That process, that honest self-interrogation, that is the real work of a critical thinker. Thanks for joining me.